how an engineering flaw created history's ultimate cult following and conquered the planet. In September 1963, at the Frankfurt Motor Show, Porsche rolled out their new model on the pavilion stage under the index 901, which would later be renamed into three iconic digits, 911. It was a sleek, low-slung coupe with unusually smooth lines, a sloping rear deck, and round headlights that stared back at the audience in a look of wide-eyed surprise. However, the absolute core of the vehicle lay buried in its very tail. Engineers had somehow managed to cram a massive six-cylinder boxer engine way back in the rear, entirely overhanging the car's rear axle. Professional designers, racing drivers, and automotive critics took one look under the hood, studied the blueprints, and began openly snickering while tapping their temples. Such an architecture seemed not just amateurish, but like absolute engineering suicide. According to every fundamental law of physics, this sports car was bound to possess atrocious lift and snap oversteer. Experts predicted with one voice that at the very first wet corner or sudden lift of the throttle, the heavy rear end would act like a pendulum, turning the car into an uncontrollable projectile flying tail first into a ditch. Competitors from Ferrari, Jaguar, and Aston Martin popped champagne and rubbed their hands together, anticipating the swift and crushing failure of the upstarts from Stuttgart. Yet, instead of a loud fiasco, bankruptcy, and public humiliation, the world witnessed a monumental paradigm shift. The Porsche 911 did not just drive, it broke the established system, bent stubborn physics to its will, silenced the harshest skeptics, and stamped its three numbers so deeply into global history that today they are recognized by absolutely everyone on Earth, even those who have never sat behind a wheel in their lives. It turned into a form of collective infatuation. How could a car with such a controversial, fundamentally flawed layout become the ultimate benchmark of speed, an icon of style, and the most recognizable silhouette on the planet? How did a technical absurdity, the stubbornness of a single family, and a handful of wild ideas by German engineers give birth to a cult following that has lasted 7 decades and is only gaining momentum? To grasp the sheer scale of this phenomenon, one must unearth the entire history and peer under the hood of this great evolution. When the first customers began complaining about the eccentric and sometimes downright terrifying high-speed handling of the early Porsche 911 models, the company's management faced two distinct choices. The first, logical and simple path was to admit that the rear engine layout was a mistake, move the engine to the front or middle like every other normal manufacturer, and blend in with the crowd. But the Germans displayed an outrageous, almost cosmic level of stubbornness. They flatly refused to alter the basic concept or concede defeat. Instead, they set themselves a manic goal: to refine this temperamental, treacherous, and unbalanced architecture to absolute mechanical perfection. It was at this exact moment that Porsche's unique philosophy was born, radically setting the brand apart from any other car manufacturer in the world. They completely abandoned radical revolutions in favor of an endless, meticulous, and fanatical evolution. While Italian, British, and American marques lurched from one extreme to another every 5 to 7 years, throwing revolutions, completely redesigning cars from a blank sheet, changing platforms, drivetrain layouts, and body shapes, rendering their past models obsolete junk, the Porsche 911 stuck to its unyielding path. From generation to generation, from body to body, from the classic air-cooled era to the legendary 930, 964, 993 generations, the water-cooled 996, and onward to the modern 997, 991, and 992. The core recipe remained absolutely sacred. The recognizable, clean silhouette with the smooth, sloping roofline, the teardrop body shape, and the famous frog eye round headlights remained family traits passed down carefully through the decades. Porsche's designers achieved a miracle. They crafted a form that managed to look ultra-modern in any era, whether it was the psychedelic 60s, the wild 80s with their massive whale-tail spoilers, or the high-tech 21st century. But the real magic was happening, of course, on the inside. The engineers in Stuttgart moved components step by step, millimeter by millimeter, tweaking suspension geometry, introducing innovative alloys, and deploying electronics to turn the car's primary design flaw into its most potent and undeniable weapon. The immense weight hanging over the rear axle, which originally induced dangerous spins, was transformed by Porsche's master craftsmen into phenomenal tractor-like traction under acceleration. When the 911 accelerated, the laws of physics squashed that heavy rear end hard onto the tarmac, allowing the car to put all its power down to the wheels without wasteful wheel spin, leaving mid-engined and front-engined rivals far behind. Yes, this car demanded absolute concentration, surgical precision, and genuine skill from the driver. It did not forgive foolish mistakes when entering a corner, but in return, it delivered such a pure, mechanical, unadulterated driving thrill and a level of control that no sanitized supercar could ever replicate. The world fell hopelessly in love with the 911 precisely for this complex, charismatic personality, which engineers chose not to erase, but to carefully polish like a diamond, turning it into the crowning jewel of engineering. However, charisma, a beautiful silhouette, and a unique character alone were far from enough to pull a car to the peak of the global automotive Olympus and keep it there for decades. To build a genuine, unshakable cult, the car had to prove its supremacy by fire in the harshest, most merciless conditions mankind could devise. And Porsche did not hesitate to throw the 911 into the blazing hell of global motorsport. The German sports car went to war on every imaginable front, and what happened next altered racing history forever. Modified iterations of the 911 began methodically, ruthlessly, and massively slaughtering the competition everywhere a road or a racetrack was laid out. They dominated the iconic and grueling 24 hours of Le Mans, tore up rivals on the treacherous Nürburgring Nordschleife, and triumphed in the endurance classics of Daytona and Spa. Furthermore, this purely asphalt-oriented, seemingly low-clearance machine managed to win the legendary brutal Monte Carlo Rally, and later, in its 953 all-wheel drive guise, conquered the endless, punishing sands and dunes of the brutal Paris-Dakar Rally. These countless triumphs on the racing circuits brought Porsche more than just trophies and glory. They proved a pivotal fact to the world. This car possessed a phenomenal bulletproof German reliability. While Italian supercars threw tantrums, broke down from overheating, required complex servicing after every spirited drive, and literally rattled apart under heavy loads, the Porsche 911 kept ticking away laps with the precision of a Swiss watch. And this is where the company's management pulled off their most brilliant, defining marketing and engineering stunt, cementing the car's status once and for all. Porsche managed to completely transplant this insane racing endurance, all this track-bred aggression and technology, directly onto everyday public roads. They created, essentially, a one-of-a-kind supercar that blurred the boundary between the track and reality. The phenomenon of the daily drivable supercar was born. This was a car in which an owner could arrive at a racetrack early on a Saturday morning, thrash it mercilessly for hours on end, melting tires, cooking brakes, and chasing lap records. And then, without ever lifting the hood or repairing a thing, simply turn on the air conditioning and drive onto public roads. They could comfortably drop by the supermarket for groceries, pick up the kids from school, or sit for hours in a stifling, exhausting city traffic jam without the slightest fear of the engine boiling over, the spark plugs fouling with oil, or the clutch burning out in 5 minutes. It featured the ergonomics of a normal car, great visibility, comfortable seating, and even 2 small rear seats to throw bags into or sit small children. This incredible paradoxical versatility instantly launched the 911 into a completely new cosmic tier of pop culture. The car stopped being merely a toy for wealthy enthusiasts. It became a social ladder, a cultural cipher, the star of Hollywood blockbusters, the ultimate poster car in iconic video game franchises like Need for Speed and Forza Horizon, and of course, the most desired poster pinned onto the bedroom walls of millions of teenagers worldwide, dreaming of one day earning those 3 coveted digits. Ultimately, the Porsche 911 earned its undisputed cult status and became an immortal icon of automotive history, for one fundamental and very simple reason. It never, for a single second, tried to pretend to be something else, never pander to the masses, and fundamentally refused to chase fleeting, short-lived fashion trends. While the surrounding world changed at breakneck speed, trends ignited and flared out, and automotive design swung wildly from sharp chiseled wedges to bio-design, and then into cold futurism. The 911 stood unfazed like a jagged cliff in the middle of a raging ocean of chaos. It always remained entirely honest, straightforward, and loyal to its original DNA, steadily proving its absolute superiority year after year on grueling race circuits and neon-lit city streets alike. We know absolutely everything about this car. Its image is hardwired directly into the subconscious of our minds because it has been physically impossible to mistake this unique silhouette for any other machine on the planet for more than 60 years. Generations of people have changed, walls have fallen, technology has shot into the stratosphere, and carburetors have given way to ultra-complex direct injection, twin turbochargers, and hybrid systems. Yet if you show any passerby on the street a vague outline of that sloping roof and those round headlights, they will utter with absolute certainty, "That's a Porsche." This machine has evolved into a living, breathing legend, turning into the ultimate and most severe benchmark for the entire global industry. Any manufacturer creating a new sports car invariably takes the coupe from Stuttgart as their starting point and primary target. The Porsche 911 stands as a monumental, glaring proof that if you take even the most absurd, technically incorrect idea and multiply it by brilliant German engineering, multiply it again by the titanic, unyielding stubbornness of its creators, and spend decades honing it to a fine edge, you can create a piece of art that turns out to be far stronger than time, the laws of fashion, and human memory itself. And as long as this car keeps its engine in the back, this cult will live forever.